The sun crests over the dunes of Canaan, casting long, sharp shadows across the shifting sands. In the silence of the morning, he remembers the encounter with Melchizedek. The king of Salem held out a simple loaf of bread and a cup of wine. As Abram accepted them, the air hummed with a presence that transcended the physical world. He bowed his head, acknowledging a covenant. That night, the sky turned into a vast tapestry of light. Abram stood beneath the infinite stars, his neck craning upward. He traced the constellations with his finger as a voice, deep and resonant, echoed in the stillness. "So shall your seed be," he believed. The words vibrated in his chest, a promise written in fire across the dark expanse. Inside the tent, the air grew heavy, thick with the scent of dry dust and unspoken frustration. The vastness of the stars outside felt a world away. Sarai paced the small, confined space, her shadow flickering against the woven walls with every frantic step. She stopped abruptly, her eyes locking onto Abram. She spoke of her barrenness, her voice tight and trembling with the accumulation of wasted years. She gestured toward the tent entrance where Hagar stood, her head bowed in the dim light. Abram turned away, his jaw set hard. He did not reach for the silence of prayer. He did not seek the guidance of the Almighty. He stood still, the weight of the promise pressing against his chest. Yet he chose the path of immediate, human resolution. He looked at Sarai, then toward the entrance, and finally back to the ground. He nodded once. It was a sharp, final movement, a surrender to the logic of the moment. The tension in the room snapped, replaced by a hollow, cold certainty. He walked past her, leaving the tent to the silence of the desert. The shift in the camp was immediate. Hagar moved with a new, deliberate gait, her chin lifted high whenever she passed Sarai. Her eyes remained cold, fixed on the horizon rather than the tasks at hand. Sarai watched from the shade of the tent, her hands gripping the woven fabric until her knuckles turned white. The silence between them grew jagged, a physical barrier that no one dared to cross. The camp, once a place of shared labor, fractured into a landscape of resentment. Sarai finally broke the stillness. She lashed out, her words sharp and cutting, echoing across the dry sand. Hagar did not wait for a response. She turned sharply, her feet kicking up clouds of dust as she sprinted toward the perimeter. She pushed past the boundary of the camp and ran until the tents were nothing more than small, dark shapes against the dunes. She collapsed by a small, hidden spring, her chest heaving, her breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps. The heat shimmered off the sand, distorting the horizon into a liquid haze. Hagar lay motionless by the spring, her face pressed against the cool, damp earth. Then, the light changed. The harsh, white glare of the sun vanished, replaced by a soft, steady glow that seemed to emanate from the air itself. Hagar pushed herself up, shielding her eyes with a shaking hand. A figure stood before her, solid and luminous against the dunes. She scrambled backward, her breath catching in her throat. The messenger spoke, and the voice cut through the wind like a blade. "Return," the figure commanded. "Submit yourself to your mistress, for I have heard your affliction." Hagar stared, her body rigid. The air before her began to ripple, forming a vision of a boy growing into a man, wild and strong, his grip firm on a bough, his spirit untamed by the desert. "Call his name Ishmael," the messenger said. The light faded, leaving only the sound of the wind and the trickle of water. Hagar sat in the silence for a long moment. She stood, wiping the dust and salt from her face. Years later, Abraham stood alone under the same canopy of stars. The desert wind whistled through the dry brush, carrying the scent of dust. He traced the constellations with his gaze, his posture heavy and humble. He looked back at the path he had carved. Hasty shortcuts birthed deeper sorrow. He understood now that the promise was not something to be seized by human effort or the urgency of the moment. He lowered his head, his hands resting at his sides. The lesson was etched into his soul. The path of faith was not paved by his own hands. It was found only by waiting, by listening, and by asking at the mouth of God. He stood still, finally at rest.